We'll go ahead and call our April 6th meeting of Benefits and Insurance Committee into order. Mr. Priest, would you mind calling roll, please?
Preble, Acton. Rhonda, Allen. Andrea, Anthony.
Here.
Doug, Bodery.
Here.
Amber, Brown.
Here.
Shay, Crowell.
Here.
Holly, Deering.
Here.
Alan, Farley.
Present.
Mary Hickerson.
Here.
Lois Miller.
Here.
Alan McAdoo.
Here.
Jeff Phillips.
Present.
Shantay Sherrill.
Present.
Eric Tutobeni.
Here.
And Bill Ketron.
Here.
Sir, do you mind if I recall the two that didn't answer previously in case they've come on?
Yes, please.
Preble, Acton. Rhonda, Allen. Okay, we do have a quorum.
Okay, we do have a quorum, and it looks like this is our first real attempt at doing a virtual committee meeting in the county. So even though I do get a lot of echo, it's kind of like that old song, I send love yous down the canyon and wait till they come back around again. Nothing like the man from Tennessee, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I will accept a motion to approve the minutes from the February meeting.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second? When you say something, please identify yourself each time. Mary, if that was you that made the motion.
Yes, sir, I will.
Okay, just state your name. You made the motion. Who's on the second?
Shantay.
Shantay's on the second. All right. It's my understanding that we can't call for voice vote. It has to be, the comptroller says it has to be by roll call vote. So Stacy, if you would, please call the roll.
Okay. Preble, Acton. Rhonda, Allen. Andrea, Anthony.
Yes.
Doug, Bodery.
Yes.
Amber, Brown.
Yes.
Shay, Crowell.
Yes.
Holly, Deering.
Yes.
Alan, Farley.
Yeah.
Mary Hickerson.
Yes.
Lois Miller.
Yes.
Alan McAdoo.
Yes.
Jeff Phillips.
Yes.
Shantay Sherrill.
Yes.
Eric Tutobeni.
Yes.
Bill Ketron.
Aye. Minutes have been approved. Item number 4 is financials. I'll call on Ed Elam, Director of Insurance Risk Management, to present our financials. Mr. Elam. Need to pick up the mic.
All right, can you hear me? Ooh, hold on a minute. Okay, now can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, yeah, we can hear
Much
you.
better.
Okay, starting with the 264 fund, you have $14,555,064 in revenue. You have $13,336,710 in expenditures. For the fiscal year, you have $46,427,042 in revenue, and in expenditures you have, or claims, you have $52,620,311. If you move over to the tracker, you can see total enrollment, 6,258,000. For the month of February, you had $7,273,080 in revenue, and in expenditures, you had $6,373,933. Now we'll move on to the 266 fund. If you look in the month of February on your graph, you'll see that there was a few more expenditures compared to last year. And if you move over to the tracker, you'll see that we had for 2020, we had $44,428.65 in claims, compared to last year at $40,228.07. If you move to the far left on the year-to-date boxes, 2019, you had $502,919.27. 2020, at the top box, you'll see $322,452.03, which we're running about 64% compared to last year. That'd be my report, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Elam has given his report. Are there any questions concerning the report?
Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman. This is Jeff Phillips.
Jeff Phillips on the motion to approve the report. Is there a second?
This is Lois Miller. I second.
We have a second. If you would, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Okay. Preble Acton, Rhonda Allen, Andrea Anthony,
Yes.
Doug Bodery,
Yes.
Amber Brown,
Yes.
Shay Crowell,
Yes.
Holly Deering,
Yes. Yes.
Alan Farley,
Yes.
Mary Hickerson,
Yes.
Lois Miller,
Yes.
Alan McAdoo,
Yes.
Jeff Phillips,
Yes.
Shantay Sherrill,
Yes.
Eric Tutobeni,
Yes.
and Mayor Bill Ketchum.
Aye.
It is unanimous.
Looks like we have approved the financial statement, so thank you very much. Next, members, if you will, play very close attention as we get into this, because and we'll be here to answer any questions. But at this point in time, I'm going to call on Jay Brown with Mercer. Jay, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay, Jay is prepared, members, to give us our insurance rates for the 2021, I guess, insurance rates. So, Jay, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. You're recognized.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to do the overview of the story, how we got to the rates, and then Jake's on the line as well to do some color commentary for me. But essentially, as you guys have seen, as Mr. Elam has provided the tracker each month, we are starting to see an increase in claims over the last several months. So when we go back and look over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had some good years on the front end of that. But last year we started to see an uptick in claims. This year that is continued. And then obviously with the current state that we're in with the coronavirus, there are some concerns with COVID-19, what this year and next year will look like as well. So when we did our full projection using the same formula that we used last year and applied the claims and the expenses and trend, essentially, which we don't have today. Today, the rates will show, and I'll get to the rates in a second, but how we started to get with the rates is we ended up with essentially 3 different projections based on the most recent 12 months of claims data. And that was a conservative number. I'll give you 3 numbers real quick. A conservative number of a 12% overall needed increase, a moderate number of 7.9, and then an aggressive number of 3.9. And the difference between those 3, meaning the aggressive had no margin or no room for error in there. That was pretty much the claims, the expenses, limited trend, no margin was 3.9. Moderate is the area that we've seemed to land on in the past. Moderate has 2.5% built in for some claim fluctuation. And then it has half of the needed trend, or a little bit more trend in there than the aggressive proposal. And then conservative has a full 5% margin, full trend months, and it was the 12%. So that's kind of where we were starting from. Essentially, we had met with the Insurance Risk Management Department, so essentially Ed and Melissa, to kind of go over these over the last probably 2 months as we're getting closer to these meetings. So with those being the basis, from there, we did look at plan design changes, just as some options that I'll talk about today. We looked at changing the network to maybe a skinnier network that might exclude Stonecrest or St. Thomas, for example. We also looked at, some other options as far as what we did last year. If you guys remember, we did go to the 90-day fill on the pharmacy. There was an audit done again this year on the pharmacy, and there are continued increases in the pharmacy area. So we did look at some formulary changes to also try to reduce this rate. So when we looked at it, there were the narrow networks that would exclude one of the health systems. Even if we moved the plan design, so just in general, if we increase the deductibles, say $500 for the plans on average, we would be able to reduce about a 1.5%. If we increase the deductibles, say $1,000, it was worth about 2.5%. So just some bearings, and I'm kind of telling a story, and then I'll open it up for all the questions. And then the formulary change, for example, was worth about $500,000. So really about 0.6%. And that's called, what the formulary change is called, their value PDL, and Jake can get in that in a second. On top of that, so there was the stop loss. So you guys, every year we have the stop loss renewal that's in July. They were asking, Cigna was the stop loss vendor, they're asking for a 5% increase to keep the stop loss level the same, which is about $30,000. We looked at increasing those different levels, but really due to the nature we're in today with seeing increases in claims, the amount that we were saving and reducing the premium offset by what the risk we were taking on, we're still leaning towards keeping the same level at the 5%. That's what's built into the projections. However, we did get them to extend the stop loss rate. So right now that stop loss starts at 7/1. Your contract with Cigna, with the medical provider, is on a 7/1 basis. We're looking to change that to a January cycle, which is in line with your life and disability in line with when we do open enrollment. So we asked them what would be the impact if we moved from a 7/1 effective date, which is a 12-month rate, to an 18-month rate to get us back on a 1/1 cycle. And they agreed to keep the increase at the 5% for the additional 6 months. So we got a little bit of a concession there. So what's kind of open up for discussion with kind of telling the story there is essentially I gave you the conservative, the moderate, the aggressive, the 12%, the 7.9, and the 3.9. Then when talking with the risk management team, we looked at the narrow networks. Didn't really want to make that change today, especially with implementing the on-site clinic with St. Thomas is something we're in the middle of now. So looking at a network that might exclude them and or moving to a network that might only include them didn't seem to be the right time to do that. Increasing the deductibles, $500 or $1,000, and putting more risk onto the employee to save a point and a half seemed a little aggressive as well. But due to the increase in the pharmacy that we continue to see, due to the pharmacy audit, moving to the formulary and being able to reduce the projection there seemed to be something that we wanted to discuss with you guys today, along with any of the other changes. But essentially, when we looked at going with, say, the moderate option and putting in the pharmacy changes, we were able to get comfortable with our actuary at an overall increase of right at exactly 7% at that moderate level with the one pharmacy change. And that's really the option that we want to discuss with you guys today. So without making a motion at this point, because I do want to talk about the contributions of the couple different options there, just want to offer up, as we look at the total rate increase, does anyone have any questions about anything I've said so far? As I know it's a little hard in this setting, a virtual world, and not being able to see your faces.
Okay, if you have questions, just identify yourself and then go ahead and ask Jay any questions you might have. Mary, I know you're waiting on something. Go ahead.
I explained it so well. No questions. Or everybody's on mute and forgot to take off the mute. All right, I can go on, and still I just didn't want to keep talking on and on without giving you a chance to speak. So essentially, and we'll get another opportunity in a second, but if I can just keep going, then I think this next area will be kind of where we would want to talk some more is, so if we're assuming the RX formulary change with the value PDL that Cigna offers, getting the increase down to the moderate level, so not being aggressive, not being conservative, at the 7% level, then what we decided there is what's the breakout between the three plans. You guys have an HRA, the deductible plan, and the copay plan. And so the split between the three plans to equal the 7, we saw a 4% increase to the HRA, a 14% increase to the deductible, and a 9.5% increase to the copay. So we're still seeing those other two plans are running hotter or more claims to premium than the HRA. So we still wanted to favor the HRA plan. The deductible plan still seems to be the hottest plan, running the worst. So we are giving them the biggest increase. But at this point, it's 4%, 14 for the deductible, and 9.5 for the copay, which is, I believe, on that spreadsheet there in red that if yours looks like mine, you can't really see that well. I don't know if we can I don't know if there's a way to make that a little bigger. I don't know if that's Stacy that's driving it or Melissa. Yeah, that helps. And then if you guys remember, this is the last year of the contribution changes. So today, for this year, under the deductible plan, for example, we are moving from an 81, 80, 80, 80 to a 80 all the way down. So this is the last year of going one more slot from 81 to 80 on the employee. The other lines are staying the same. And then for the copay, the last year of that is going from 90, and then the other tiers are 80, 80, 80. They were 81 before. So it's just the 1 point for the employee only under deductible and the 1 point under the copay for all the dependents. And that was what was voted in a few years back. That's the last change there. And then the HRA today is 100% for employee, 95% for employee plus spouse, 96% for child, and 94% for family. That's what the employer pays today for those. So if we keep that contribution equation the same at the 7% increase divided out amongst the three plans like we mentioned, which is highlighted in the red on the exhibit, if you can see those, then you have highlighted in, I guess, orangish, tannish on there, what the impact is to the employee by dollar by paycheck. And this is the county 12-month rates, just as an example. Actives are at the top, retirees are at the bottom. But in aggregate, essentially, under this example, the employer is picking up around $4 million. It's a $5 million overall increase. That's what 7% is worth. $4 million of that money is going on to the employer, and $1 million of that is going on to the employee based on this strategy. And then, like I said, if you can see that, I know we emailed some of this out, or so you may have that in front of you as well, but you can see what the impact of that $1 million being passed on to the employee per paycheck listed there in the highlighted column.
Hey, Jay.
Yeah.
I think one of the tell signs here, if you go back to the 264 tracker and you look at the very bottom two lines, and Melissa, if you could pull that up, and it says your fiscal year difference in revenue and your fiscal year difference in expenditures. You see our expenditures are at 5.5 compared to our revenue at 1.5. Now, we do have a pharmacy rebate that will offset part of that, but it still shows that our expenditures compared to last year are higher than our revenue.
That's correct. Thanks for
with
showing
4
that
months
again.
left in the rebate. So we're going to have to make up $6.1 million. There will be a rebate of about $3.3 million in the pharmacy. We'll make up that. And then we'll have about 3 months left.
Right. So last year we were pretty aggressive in the projection, and I think we're going to come in pretty close. So to Ed's point, we have 3 months left. We have a rebate from Cigna. Based on the current situation, there are some lags in the claims, but a lot of the non-essential services, as we've talked about, are being postponed due to the work from home, stay at home state that we're in through Tennessee. So we're hopeful we'll be able to end the fiscal year with premium and claims right in line with each other. But at the moment, we're about $3 million upside down on that. So we'll see how that trends out over the next couple of months. But that's kind of where the concern is now we're talking about a projection for the calendar year 2021 and needing to trend these claims forward in order to stay up with this premium. So that we don't have a shortfall at the end of next year.
I've got a quick question. This is Mary. So we're going to see this increase because we're getting down to the 80% share of the 80-20 like we had worked several years on. But we're doing this at changing something on the prescriptive part also. So not only are we going to have an increase, which we're all aware that's going to happen, but we're changing, taking away what on the prescription.
Right. Yeah. Let me take a little bit more in there. So essentially, you're right. We did make a network change. We're not talking about changing the medical plan due to the 7%. If that's what we're landing on, that is a change to the pharmacy formulary. And then Jake was going to play my play-by-play to kind of give you just like 2 minutes on what that looks like, Mary, and the rest of the group too.
Yeah, so I'll fill in a little bit on the prescription. It's a Cigna value PDL is what they call it. And there's a list that the risk management team has seen that identifies the drugs that would be impacted. There's roughly 1,300 members, so about 10% of the overall Rutherford County membership. It's around 1,340 drugs, and what it is there's a difference in tiers. So some drugs would be going from tier 1 to tier 2. Some drugs would be excluded and other alternatives suggested. And then finally, there would be some drugs and drug classes removed altogether, like PPI, so proton pump inhibitors. This would be things like omeprazole, the heartburn, ulcer medications that you can get over the counter. So this is something that Cigna has rolled out for a lot of their self-funded groups as a way to save some money with what we are seeing as a somewhat minimal impact due to only affecting about 10% of the overall membership.
And Mary, what would happen, it's 10% of the population, and during fourth quarter, every member will get a letter from Cigna stating if they're affected by that and what the alternative is, or what do they need to do specifically for that person. But a big chunk of it was just essentially over the course of time, a lot of these proton pump inhibitors, heartburn medications are now over the counter. And so we're encouraging you to use the over-counter medication versus going through the health plan. That's a good percentage of the number of prescriptions that are affected, but there are some going from tier 1 to tier 2 as well.
Okay, I have another question. Based on that, when we made this change before where we removed some drugs on what we covered, or basically we moved some drugs and it affected some of my guys' diabetes medicine. And they were able to get some things worked out, because I'm thinking of one gentleman in particular. He had done all the other trials of the different medicines that were actually on the list, and ultimately what he had already been taking was what worked. I personally don't know what was worked out with him through the Cigna process and stuff, but is this going to be an option for the folks that, if we're doing away with their medication? That's the only thing is everybody in the county realizes that we're going to have an increase to insurance premiums, because we always do. But we're going to do this and take drugs away from them. And I don't mean it like take drugs away from them, but it is just a small part of population. However, undoubtedly, for that small part of the population to have that medicine, they've gone to the doctor and stuff, and there's a point for having that. As for what is over the counter may not work. So I just wonder, are we going to be able to handle these things like we ultimately did per se on like a couple of the sugar medicines that the diabetic medicines that some of my guys used? How will that be handled? And I'm just really scared about changing the prescription thing, as of right now, and of course hitting them in their pocketbook too. But I'm always scared to change prescriptions and how we cover them, because it's some very serious for some very, for certain folks, it could be very serious.
Right. The short answer is yes. I mean, Jake, I don't know if you have the exhibit pulled up, not to share, but kind of, because I know we can't share, but to talk through it in more detail, the 3 different columns. But Mary, to your point, that's why we send out the letters in the fourth quarter, so that they can work with their doctors. And to your point, they can go through that same process and work with Cigna and their physician. And if it is determined that there's not a good alternative for them, those same conversations as before would happen again for this one as well.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, Jake, you can talk to it, and it may be a question that we ask Cigna and get back. But some of the drugs are going from one tier to the other. Are they getting cheaper, or are they getting higher? Because in my mind, in explaining it to the guys, you've got the generic, then you've got the name brand that everybody kind of uses, and then you got the name brand that is all over the television. So the ones that are moving from tier to tier, can you better explain that, or like a couple examples? You don't have to be an exact drug, but, like y'all said, the heartburn medicine.
Yeah, so most of the ones that are moving tiers would be moving up a tier, so they would get more expensive. That way they would encourage people to take the cheaper option. And then, so roughly half of them, so 714 of the 1,300 are the over-the-counter ulcer heartburn medication. So that is a big chunk of it that Cigna is seeing a move to no longer using prescriptions for those medications. So that, I don't know if that helps you or makes you feel better, but literally half of the people that would be impacted would be over-the-counter heartburn medications that are currently being filled through the pharmacy plan.
That does make me feel a little better. And then, like Jay was saying, that we still have the means of going through, if we've already trialed on some other ones, and actually going and getting that covered like we did on the gentleman I'm thinking of. So I appreciate that. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Mary. Does anybody else have any other questions before we still have like 2 or 3 things to propose, but I just didn't want to throw it all out at you, kind of do it in pieces.
Other questions?
All right, one more thing, probably two more things on there is that, so we land on, so assuming we're going to make a motion in a little while, but assuming we land on, the moderate option of 7.9, we put in the pharmacy change, which gets us down closer to 7%. We talked about the split amongst the 3 plans. We did want to propose another option because this is still a $4 million increase to the county. And the county has some challenges this year as well, if you've been in some of the other budget meetings. And so another option was to look at, how could we potentially pass even more costs on to the employees and make this more of a 50-50%, 50% the employer pays, 50% of the increase the employee pays. So it's a $5 million overall. The next option, option 2 that we show, really the employer has a $2.4 million increase and the employee has a 2.6. So it goes from 1 to 2.6, but it's essentially the 5 million is distributed half and half against the employer and the employee. Once again, based on the county having some challenges with some reduced, the hotels and different things that they're having some trouble with incomes in. Maybe Lisa or the mayor can speak to that better than I can, but we at least wanted to show a second option to try to minimize some of that increase. And the best way we saw to do that, because we are changing the deductible and the copay plan, that was already set in stone, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. During the same period, the HRA plan has never been changed, the contribution exhibit, since the inception of the plan. So today it's 100% for the employee, 95, 96, 94. So 95 for the spouse, 96 for the child, and 94 for the family. When we compare that against other employers, even municipality employers, that's still a very rich plan. So one option that we are throwing out as an option is to pass the contribution exhibit just for the HRA to 95%, 90, 90, 90. So just a flat 95, 90%. So employees would pay 5% for employee only, 10% for the other tiers. You can see in orange or whatever, tan, the impact to the paycheck for that, for just that one plan, but essentially making that adjustment to just the HRA makes this where it's about a 50-50 split between the employer and the employee, and puts the contributions where at some point we'll have to have a conversation about, in the HRA plan, the employee's paying something for the insurance. But just another option that we wanted to throw out on the floor just for discussion, and get your feedback there. And I don't expect there to be silence on this one, by the way.
It's Mary again. I do think it's a good idea to start spreading the love with the HRA, because we do have it down on the copay and the deductible, finally to the 20, which we've worked on several years getting to. Just based on other municipalities and things, telling us we got a rich plan, which is wonderful. I'm grateful for that. But at some point in time, I think we also have to pay a little bit for it. I realize these folks have a huge risk of a higher deductible, but I think that we need to, I don't know if did you look at, instead of going, the employee only, you went to 95%, and then the rest you dropped straight to 90. Did you look and see if we hit a happy medium of dropping, we were at 95, 96, and 94. Instead of dropping those 5, 6, or 4% down, did you think about halving that, taking them down to ultimately getting to the 95, 90 split, kind of like we did on the 80, or is it just best that we rip the Band-Aid off and do a 95 and then 90% on the other 3 tiers?
I think that's a good question, and I think Ed owes me money because I expected you to ask that question. So, but yeah, so essentially the way I wanted to show kind of the end result in the exhibit, just to kind of show, the thought was the county is potentially challenged with the $4 million. So this was, the pretty picture is it's 50-50 between the two. To your point, Mary, it is going maybe a little further to the extreme than what we want. So kind of the thought might be is that this year we meet in the middle on that. Kind of like what we did before is we have a 2 to 3 year strategy that gets here, just like we did with the other. Whereas, this year we make a motion to meet somewhere in the middle and go ahead and make the same motion for, next year to get to this spot. So that way we don't have to, we kind of have a 2 year strategy in place and not have to recreate the wheel next year. But essentially, to your point, I didn't go ahead and do the, say, 96, 90, somewhere in the middle of that. I can do that. I wasn't even sure what the temperature was going to be at all from this particular group to make that change, like you said, on top of the 7, on top of the formulary. But I just feel like, just in theory, we need to start charging more on that HRA plan. And I don't think the changes that we're recommending, when you look over, I don't know if you can see, but at like 2 columns over from that, it says employee contribution with wellness reduction, which the majority of people in the wellness program, I mean, even for a single moving to this plan right now, it's $50.21 per check for an employee versus, the copay plan, which is double that, almost $100. So, in theory, it would be coming off of that. If we just cut that in half, it would come down $12. So it'd be more like $38. So something like that. So, I mean, I'm open to looking at that, but that's what I wanted to say is whatever we recommended for the HRA to get them maybe in line with some of the other, municipalities. What we don't want is to discourage people in the HRA to move to the copay plan. So even at this kind of maybe dramatic adjustment, even going down and saying a family at 90% is going to pay $171, they pay $457 for the copay. So it just kind of almost like when we started looking at it, it was like, well, yeah, we should be doing this. Even comparing to the copay plan, it's 2 and 3 times more money to move to that other option. So nobody's going to change. They may not be happy with the, this contribution strategy, but it still makes more sense than the other plans. But I guess the overall question would be still back to what can the county bear? I mean, do we need to look at 4% or 4 million and reduce that to 2.4? Can we make it, $3.5 million? And then we look at what this would be in the middle. I'm open to suggestions. I just wanted to at least have some good conversation about it.
Hey Jay, this is Sonia.
Yeah.
So I am a little concerned from a recruiting perspective when you start talking about the HRA. I mean, we've long promoted that plan as one that was an alternative for our healthy population to take that would be a 0 cost premium for them as the employee only. And when you look at, you're talking almost double the amount of the deductible a person would have to pay if they did utilize the benefit. But you're going to say that the total monthly contribution of the employee is almost right in line with what the employee, if you look at the employee individual on the copay plan, the contribution at this, well, you're looking at it about a third of it. So it's not really, never mind, scratch that. I'm just concerned that we've always promoted this as, hey, you know, we've got an option for our insurance that is free. So if you left the employee individual at the 100% and then adjusted the other options, that it might be easier at this point. I understand taking some of the burden off of the county. That still leaves us an option that says, hey, and you can come under employee only for those individuals who are not maybe in a pay grade that's not paying as high as others. That gives them an option for insurance at a lesser salary rate. And I think if we went back and looked to see who was on that, that's probably going to be the majority of the people that are in that plan.
Right. And like I said, I want to be sensitive to that too. My thought is, I mean, how long has this HRA been in place? I mean, it's been in place 10 plus years at this point, right? And we haven't, I mean, so back then at that point, a zero cost plan was still something people were doing. The challenge that I know we've had more recently in this plan is we've talked about, you know, and we can talk about it again, I probably should have brought it up earlier, but we've talked about dropping the deductible plan since the membership's so low, and possibly adding maybe another plan that might, you know, be a higher deductible option, just to give a third. I mean, we've got a nice copay plan, we've got an HRA plan that hasn't changed much. You know, maybe there's another third option plan, so we still have 3 plans if we want to go down that road. But the problem we always have with maybe offering a less rich option is that the HRA plan's free to employees. So we struggle with being able to offer a less rich plan because you can't pay less than zero. So part of it is trying to get the HRA maybe at some point now, 10 years later or longer, to be more of that middle option and give now a third option. And then how would we set contributions for that plan in the years 2 or 3 versus, like you said, having a competitive plan as you're out recruiting people. But I still would think, you know, at a 5%, the employee paying, it's $50. I mean, our Mercer survey data says for an employee on average, an employee pays on average like $89, $91 for coverage. So this is still almost half, even at $50, what most pay for this type plan. But still, I'm open for any type discussions. But that, I just want to say, it's kind of twofold of trying to pass some more costs on the employee, save the employer, trying to keep it in balance where it's competitive. But then the part I hadn't mentioned is maybe, like I said, offering a third plan down the road, and how do we set up contributions for that one when this one is essentially almost free to the employees and not very much for the other tiers.
Do you recall on that survey what the average employee wage was for that same premium?
No, I mean, I don't know that it shows it side by side like that. I mean, we could kind of look. I just know, and it was like all employers for the whole U.S.
Okay.
Kind of deal, not even municipalities. But I don't think we have it. But I mean, even if we look at like the state plan, I mean, we pulled a lot of the information off the website because we know that, I don't know who's on from the teachers, but a lot of times, you know, we're asked, well, what's the state plan have and what's the contributions there? But the state plan has a consumerism plan too. And I mean, even their contributions to the employees are more in range with the numbers I was saying out as kind of the national averages. So I know, you know, you're still in line with those. I mean, still richer than those guys, even at this increase here.
There are a couple of people I'd like to hear from. Our former risk manager, Lois, and then I'd like to also hear from our schools, since they make up the largest portion of our plan. Lois, any comments?
Yeah, I can see everybody's point on this. However, Jay's absolutely right that contribution level has been in place since we put that plan in, and it's been over 10 years ago because that particular plan came in when I was there. So, and we set it that way to maximize enrollment into that particular plan. And obviously it was successful. But at this point in time, so many years later, it would make sense to go ahead and make that change. And if you look at the premiums, as Jay's mentioned, with most folks actually being in the wellness program, the premiums are still extremely reasonable on the single especially, so that would hopefully play well for Sonia's issue. And they're much more reasonable than the other two plans. So I would be in support of changing it to the 95-90 structure.
I'd like to hear from schools. Anybody from schools on? Rutherford County Schools, any comments?
Yes, we're, Andre, do you want to speak about this from a teacher standpoint? Classified or certifieds?
Doug, you want to?
What I was going to say is that we do agree with what Sonia was saying. We do often use it as a recruitment tool, especially when it comes down to we're all competing within the teacher shortage. We're all competing with the same people, so it does make it challenging, and that is a selling point for our district versus oftentimes Varsville City, who uses the state plan.
Okay, let me just share with all the members where I think, and talking with many of the commissioners, where I think we are at this point in time. If this were 60 days ago, the conversation would be totally different than what it is today. Trying to brace with for the future of where Rutherford County is going to be. Our hotel motel tax, our sales tax, and of course we in the state of Tennessee, we, just like the county, we live a lot on our sales tax. Unfortunately, because of the current crisis with COVID-19, our sales tax is going to be scary, to say the least. I think we need to be prudent and be prepared to make some hard cuts. That's what I'm asking each one of my departments to make right now. Not only are you going to be lucky to get what you got last year, I still need you to probably be prepared to cut even more when we get in front of the commission. My recommendation to this committee is to, the feel that I'm getting from the commission is that they won't go for the 4 million. It's probably going to be more like the 2.5. It's going to be the recommendation. These are hard times, and it's going to be hard in the future for us to, my attempt as mayor, and I think the county commission as well, is to keep from furloughing employees, and anything that we can do to attempt to keep from laying employees off and downsizing our departments. It's like we've never seen anything like this, but from what I'm seeing, it's crazy. Just this morning, I spent $40,000 just trying to buy masks, and it's going to the highest bidder. We're trying to get gowns, we're trying to get reefer trucks, even to just to prepare for the worst, where we're going to place people until they can be taken care of at a proper time. So these are not encouraging times, but these are times to make good, solid decisions, and so it's my recommendation we go with where at least the employees have a job, and they're going to have to contribute more, and everything we did, the county commission did last year and gave the largest pay increase that we've ever given, is all going to be taken away through these increases here, but at least there is income coming in, and there is good benefits being provided, even though they're going to have to participate a little bit stronger than what they have in the past. Comments?
I'd like to speak from the teacher's perspective. This is Shay Crowell, representative for Rutherford Education Association. I'm looking at these numbers, and I'm looking at how many teachers are going to be impacted if we go with the second option, the 95-90. And you're looking at teachers and kids only, and you're more than doubling the amount that's paid per month. More than doubling for, what is that, 874 current enrollees to go to $111.93 per month. And then you're looking at employee individuals. You're hitting teachers hardest. And although we have had wonderful pay increases, and thank you, county commissioners, for that over the past few years, it is hard to ask teachers once again to accept the majority burden for county expenditures. And I think it is reasonable for employees and for the county at large to expect the county during crisis to not create more of a crisis for its workers, but to try to mitigate that by perhaps borrowing money and paying it off when times return to normal. I don't think that during a recession is the time to start making cuts. Plus, we have a teacher shortage. So you have a teacher shortage plus recession. And if this is the tool that we use for recruiting, you don't double it. You don't go from 96% contribution down to 90% contribution in 1 year. That feels like a huge hit.
If I heard you right, I think you were saying that the teachers were paying at a higher rate than the rest of the county, which is not true.
No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, if you compare the two side by side, the employee plus child is for the 2021 renewal rates. One is at a 96% rate, and the other is at a 90% contribution rate, right? And if you look at those two, it more than doubles the contribution that they would have to pay, that teachers would have to pay.
Well, under which column? Because I'm looking at the same columns, and the teachers are on a 10-month cycle as opposed to a 12-month cycle.
Yes,
and so if I'm understanding what you're saying, under the 2021 rates, it's, say for the HRA employee individual, it's 605.05, but the 2020 is 581.78. So that's not, am I looking at the same numbers you're speaking to?
So what I'm seeing under employee contributions with wellness reduction,
okay,
I see 44.77 per month, right? And then I'm looking at 111 per month with the other plan.
I must be not seeing the same, I'm not seeing the same screen.
I'm looking at Plan 1 under Board of Education versus Plan 2 for Board of Education. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because employee plus child, you're talking about a lot of single parents that you're hitting hard. Single parents who are teachers, you're hitting hard. Or families where the spouse is on a different plan and you're already dealing with 2 copays, 2 deductibles per family. And so if you have the 2 spouses hit hard for medical issues in a year, you're looking at doubling the amount of out-of-pocket expenditures, and now you're going to double the amount of contribution money per month. It seems like to go from 96% down to 90% within 1 year feels really hard. I'm not opposed to going from 100 to 100% contribution to 95% contribution for the individual, because that doesn't seem so bad. But when you're talking about families with kids, they're already tightening their belts and budgeting cutting back on food budgets.
If I may, this is Mary. It takes a hit on county general too. On if we switched and sent everybody to the 90%. At the other rate, the group you're talking about was going to pay $37 and some change. They would move to the $93 and some change if I'm seeing it just right. So, I mean, it's not just the teachers taking the hit, but back to the recruiting thing. I get it that we can tell them that we've got a free plan. Of course, nothing's free, but we've got a free plan. But prior to this, our huge recruiting tool for us, especially at the highway department, was the deductible plan. And that took a huge hit. And of course, we've gotten way down on our numbers and everything. So when you talk about recruiting, we took a huge hit several years ago by basically doing away with the deductible plan for some of the folks. Like I said, we took a hit in how we recruited for the highway department and everything. So everybody's going to have to think, ultimately, we've all got a share in it. And yes, this is a good recruiting tool. However, we are the county, and you can go and get a higher paying job, be it a teacher or be it a construction worker. However, if you were a private teacher at a private school, would they still be earning their paycheck today sitting at home? And don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for every teacher and everybody that works throughout the county and glad that they're able to stay home during all of this. And the construction workers. The construction workers, my guys are able to manage and be home or working, like we're doing. But if they're out in the private sector, they may have been making some more money, but I've got some friends that are not working right now. So we've got to take into account, we're the county. We can't always guarantee, but we got a better shot of keeping your job a little longer than the private sector kind of doing what we all do. But on the recruiting point, I get it, but we've got to start sharing the love. And like I said, I saw this and yeah, that's great numbers, but in my opinion, we work it down to the ultimate, drop straight on the employee only to the 95, but the other ones, drop them a little bit at a time, because when it come up that we were going to go 80-20 on the other ones, I jumped up and down and we compromised and worked it 1% or 2% down to get into the 80. So we've got to have it in, and it's not just the increase on the teachers. The same increase sits on the same price sheet for our 12-month deductions for our county general. So it's not that we're picking on the teachers. We're really not trying to pick on nobody. We are just trying to keep what we've got the best we can and afford it. And at any given time, I've always said it, and I hope it don't ever come to fruition, but the county commissioners, I hope they don't ever, please county commissioners don't, but they could take some of these benefits away from us just because. So sometimes we do have to take a little hit to be able to keep kind of what we've got without, I enjoyed it, they enjoyed it for 10 years of being free or the lesser. But I think now, as times are, we need to step up and do a little bit. But I don't think taking a huge hit all the way down to 90, I would like to see us work to it. And on that, just my opinion.
I'd like to hear from Ms. Nolan, our Director of Finance.
This is Lisa. I'm going to talk about all the things that I agree with. I like this option where we do share, and I'm agreeing with Mary that we not do as far down, maybe 1 or 2 percentage points to get in there. And jumping up to the deductible plan, there is showing on this one the 14% increase. But I think that the necessary improvement to this one was going to be 21% is what that needed, 20 or 21. The concern I have for that deductible plan, it goes up 14%. They're going to drive somewhere. I don't know which plan that they're going to go into, if it's going to be copay or the HRA. They're going to land somewhere. They're going to move. To the mayor's point of doing a 2.5 overall, you know, a lot of these times, here we are in 1st of April trying to decide what we're going to do January 1 and what is going to have transpired during the year. If we go to a 2.5 increase overall instead of the 7, we got to be ready to take a hit to the insurance fund that we may have a loss. And how big that is, or if it is, we'll know in over a year how that transpired. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying we just got to be ready. And to Mary's point, from years and years and years, is that we've got to have some increase every year, because the trends go up and people are using our benefit. So I'm concerned about the general fund and the school fund. The mayor's point, again, sales tax is what drives our budgets. School board gets their money from a large part from the BEP. Of course, that's going to, I think the state's got enough money to cover that. It concerns me to do 2.5, but we just have so much unknown that I would say let's do it for a year. We may be coming back a year from now and having more increases than this if what our population uses the plan. And I guess that's the thing that we've got to keep in mind if we do the 2.5.
Thank you, Lisa. Ed?
Mayor Ketron, can you hear me? Mayor Ketron, one of my concerns is that if we don't do this and then next year we miss it and we have to come back with a 12, 13, 14% increase because we missed it, and because of the unknowns that we have now with coronavirus, if we're not hit hard, then your trend may be that there's not that much of an increase in your medical claims. But if we are hit hard and we have a lot go on respirators and a lot of critical care, then I'm not even sure the 7% would cover it, but we wouldn't be looking at a 12, 14, 15% next year. In looking at this, we tried to hit a balance between the employees, the county commission, because we need to be able to put something here that we know will pass. And not that the county commission would throw back and say, you know, we can't do the $4 million. So it's a real juggling act to try to get this right and then know what our rates are going to be and hope that they're accurate in January 2021. And you're looking at this year, the rates are already set for 2020, and we still don't know how this coronavirus is going to affect us. So in trying to sit down and looking at it from the employee standpoint and from the county commission standpoint, and trying not to take, you know, you also can go in and make a lot of changes and take things away, and of course it would reduce those claims, but we don't want to do it. We don't want to start taking things away from the employees at this particular time. So that's why we look more at the rate increases so their benefits stay pretty close to the same other than the pharmacy. So that's kind of the balance here. You can look at it in one section, but if you look at it overall, this is one of the things Mercer has looked at, is say, how do we balance this between county taxpayers, the employees, county commissioners? How can we find an even balance? And this is kind of what we've come up with.
Was that a question to me? I agree with you, and I think it's trying to find that the fair balance with what I'm anticipating the county commission is going to take. They're concerned, they're nervous about seeing what our fiscal condition is going to be when we start trying to finalize the budget, and that's all going to be within the next at least 60 days, 90 days, May. Yeah, early May. So we're very close of having to set that, and all this is happening at the same time. So I think to be conservative, but at the same time try to find that fair balance that we can still continue to keep our employees. Our world is probably going to change in many ways from this event that we're having in this, not just our community, but the whole world is going through. Things may have to change. I've been in discussions with people talking about education. When you spend $72 million on the recent school in Rockville, how many computers and how much fiber could you actually run to children's home for $72 million? It may be to the way we educate in the future, the way we're doing things electronically, just like this first meeting here today. Brick and mortar is going away. So those are all things that may change us in the future. But right now, I want to try to be conservative and keep all of our employees, all of our teachers, all of our county employees employed. But at the same time, it's going to be tough on everybody's got to, like Mary says, share the love. These are tough choices that we're having to make. Other comments?
This is Jay again. Jake was doing some analysis, and I'm throwing it out as kind of that middle because I know we're limited in voting and virtual. But if we did go to the 95, 93, 93, 93 as maybe a third option, which may not be an option, but if you want just to know that, since we need to kind of get a vote today to move on due to what I just heard, the budget needed to be finished next month, that made the employer, so the employer goes to 3.1 million. So the option to do that kind of in the middle maybe for 21, and then 22 we agree to do 95, 90, 90, 90, but it goes from 2.4 to 3.1. So it's kind of in the middle between the two options, the 4 million, 3.1 million, sure. 2.4 million. So I don't even know if that's an option, but I know Mary had asked.
It's out there, and that's up to this committee to make a positive or negative recommendation to send on to the full commission. I will say that the full commission did approve at last month's meeting to go with St. Thomas with which included a mobile unit, and to include the psychiatric nurse. So that was approved by the full commission. You see the full commission is supportive in what this committee has made recommendations in the past. But this month's meeting is going to be a little bit tougher. Any other comments before we take a vote?
Jay, I've got a question. Excuse me, Mayor.
Sure, Mayor.
I get the percentages and everything, but did you or Jake happen to have like the dollar increase? We know it's going to be an increase, and I'm looking at county general of 25-21 on going to 95 on employee only. Did y'all happen to have any kind of number of going to the 93% all the way down? What kind of increase that? Do you have those numbers?
Yeah, Mary, this is Jake. So we were going to try to stay away from giving on-the-fly projections because we just want to make sure it's, we're all buttoned up and good. So we'll definitely send this back after the meeting. But best we can tell, 95 would be 25, 21, like you said. It looks like if we did county general, the rest of the 93, 93, 93 would be something along the lines of employee plus spouse would go up $23, employee child 29, employee family 18. And then just in case you ask on the education, it would be $30.25 for employee or individual employee, and then $27.86 for employee plus spouse, $35 for employee plus child, and $21 for employee plus family. So it's kind of, again, back to that kind of in the middle from what it was today going and versus going all the way down to 90. So maybe a little more palatable where they're definitely not doubling like they were on the 95, 90, 90.
Mayor, are you to the point that you'd like a motion on this?
Yes, ma'am.
I've got one more thing. Can I just add?
Ed's got one comment before you take the motion. Ed?
Oh,
Jay's got a few more things to get, so we can wrap all this up into one motion.
Okay. Excuse me. Hang on to that motion, Mary.
Hold on, just because we still got dental and vision, we can put all this in there with it and the stop loss.
Yep. So that's what I was going to say too. The dental and vision, we had hold till the end, but it's a rate pass, no increase for the dental and vision. So good news there, but I wanted to include that in there. And then something that's not included, but I want to throw out too, because the life and disability is out to bid right now. Proposals are due back later this week, but just from Lisa's perspective, the mayor budget, at the moment, we feel pretty confident that the incumbents, which are Cigna and Standard, are coming in with no increases on life and disability. But just so you're not getting any surprises for next month, we'll be doing a life and disability proposal like this. But at this moment, it looks like no increase and potentially some decreases there. But yeah, so the motion would be to approve the stop loss at 18 months at a 5% increase, to adopt the value PDL for the pharmacy, which makes the overall increase 7%. The dental and vision's a rate pass. And then one of these three contribution options, I guess, is the motion to vote on. I don't know where we've landed, but one of those three.
Excuse me, this is Stacy. Jay, could you say that first part again? Improve stop loss.
Oh, the stop loss would be an 18-month rate to get us on a 1-1 cycle for a 5% increase at the current levels. To make the formulary change, which is Cigna's value PDL for the pharmacy.
Got it.
Which would be an overall increase to the plan of 7%. And the dental vision's a rate pass.
Thank you. Also, Mr. Chairman, I believe Commissioner Allen is on the line and she had a comment she wanted to make.
Commissioner Allen, welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks. My question was the numbers that Jake went over, where you didn't pass on quite as full an increase, and you spread it out a little bit instead of going the 95, 90. Was that going to continue to share that $5 million split evenly? Because Mayor, you read my mind, Ed read my mind, Mary read my mind, in terms of we don't know what the ripple effect of these medical expenses are going to be. We have to brace for the worst, and I do like the idea of blending those rates across that particular group so that one group's not hit, harder than another. But I wasn't clear on, and I know he said he didn't want to do rates off the fly, but as we do rates, I just want to make sure that we're doing as best we can to split that $5 million equally between the county and the employees. I just think it's the first of many tough decisions we're going to have to make.
And that was, to your point, it's 3.1 million to the employer and then 1.9 to the employee. So it's kind of in the middle of the two options. So it goes from 2.6 was the one we were proposing at 95, 90, 90, 90. The employer was 2.4 million. This would now be another, 600,000 up to 3.1 million. So it's worth $600,000.
Okay, Jay, what percentage is that going to have them go up on an annual percentage rate? I know we're talking about actual dollars in the paycheck, but what's the percentage? Is that the 4% for them, or is that more?
Yeah, that's where I was getting. I mean, essentially the overall increase, I know there was a couple comments there that I was trying to tie back to, but the overall increase is 7%, and it's 4% to the HRA, 9.5% to the copay, and 14% to the deductible. So that's, at this point, it seems like everybody's good with that. That's not up for discussion. It's really how we're slicing it between employee and employer. So the 7% is $5 million.
Okay. Well, that's the reason that I was asking, was to see what their personal increase was going up. And I know it's not always the same across the board, but if they were in the private sector, to have anything less than a 10% increase would be a gift.
Right.
So that's kind of my thinking on that as well.
And I think it's a little tough because I think when the school board, I forgot, there was a couple different people talked there, but when you use percentages on the employee contributions, to your point, I mean, you could almost say, I think when we looked at it, I mean, the child or employee child or rate in the initial thought, I mean, it might have doubled, the rate, but it was going from 25 to 50 or something, for a single or whatever. So you could say, their rates are doubling, but it's smaller numbers. So I don't know that I would say that. I would say it's going up $25, so it really depends on the messaging. You can say, hey, our rate doubled, or you can say it's going up $25. One sounds a lot worse than the other.
It does. Thanks.
Ed?
Jay, you might point out some surrounding municipalities, like what we investigated to see what their rate increases were.
Yeah. And Jake, I know what we saw in general, that we looked at the state, we looked at the metro schools, we looked at Nashville proper, and all the rate increases ranged from 6%, was only one plan of one of those, up to like 17%, but the average in general was around 9 to 14%. Is that, Jake has exacts, but honestly, 7% for the entire plan was the lowest of everybody.
Yes, and that was even kind of pre-corona, so that was 3 or 4 weeks ago, before a lot of this even got into the weeds. So we think there will be some people taking a look, because a lot of them are fiscal year budgets 7-1 as well. We think people are taking a look right now and seeing, is 7 or even is 9 good enough, just like we're doing today. So 7 to 17, some of the average in the 9 or 10 range. So we are kind of on the low end of that average.
And to Jake's point, I mean, we've done some analysis. I mean, we're seeing 1 to 2% adjustments in claim for this year due to the COVID-19 for some of our clients. I mean, it can, depending on where you are in your age demographics, I mean, we're seeing, a 1 to 2% adjustment in this year's claims that we have not adjusted in this because we're, already kind of into the process.
I have a question. It's Doug Bodery out at the BOE.
Yeah. All right.
Mayor Ketchum, am I recognized?
Yes, sir, you are.
I just want to make sure I'm following along. On the, right now we're looking at, if we leave the contribution percentages the same, we're looking at an employer contribution for the BOE of $3,042,288, correct?
Jake, I don't know if you got that in front of you.
I don't. I mean, so are you saying what they're paying today or what their overall cost share would be?
I'm looking at an increase of the employer contribution for the BOE of $3,042,288. If we leave these contribution percentages alone, as compared to if we increase the HRA plan, as presented there, the 95% for the employee individual and 90% for the others, that would drop that increase in employer contribution to $1,755,457, correct?
I'm looking.
Doug, I'm not sure they have those numbers.
Yeah, because the overall increase was $5 million total, so nobody's.
But you see their increase to ER contribution is 1.755.
That's correct. I'm looking at just the ER contribution of the two scenarios here.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm following. This is David Michael from Mercer, and I'm following what you're saying on the on those numbers. I believe with the 1755 for if you change it. Is that correct? If you're changing the contributions for the ER Board of Education.
That's correct, sir.
And is that to the 95, 93 or the 95, 90?
The 95 and the 90s through the rest, you had just pushed that up. It's the 1,755,457 increase in ER contribution under that scenario.
Yes, sir.
But if we leave it alone, it is the 3,042,288 if we left the HRA contributions alone.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You're just looking at the blue line there, column G on the blue line. Yep.
I don't see how we could take that hit, that $3 million hit on our budget without asking the commission or without looking at something else. I mean, the 1,755,457, that's big enough, but I mean, I'm including that right now on my budget. But I mean, if this committee recommends the other one, I don't know, I guess that's just conversation like you had, Mayor Ketchum, you'd already said with the commission. Thank you for clarifying that.
No, your point is taken, and I think this, if everybody can see the screen, he's talking, it's, the fourth from the left there, the 1,755, and then it was the same subsequent page, 2 pages later on the current contributions was 3,042,000, I believe, so.
Right. But the bigger comment from both the mayor and now the school board is like the portion to the employer, the larger increase to the employer, even at this 95-90, there's concerns that's going to be a struggle in itself. So the mid ground of maybe doing the 95-93 may not get approved all the way through anyway, just due to the current circumstance.
Other comments? Any other questions? Hearing none. Mary, are you ready?
All right. We've got to put something out there, and all we can do is recommend. And we want to take care of the employees, but we also want to take care of the county so we can keep our jobs. So with that all being said, I'll make the motion that we go with option 2 that y'all have laid out on the rates. There was an option 1 page and an option 2. So we're going to go to the option 2 page with the tweaking of the HRA plan, employee only at 95%. Then the other 3 tiers of employee spouse, employee child, and employee family, instead of being at the 90% on option 2, we will go to 93% with the understanding that we will work next year getting to the 90% as we had done in the past on the copay and deductible. And in the same motion, we will approve the stop loss at a 5% increase and remaining at the current level, but move it to an 18-month, which should take it to January 21, and then go with the Cigna value PDL to our prescription cost, and to include no cost increase to vision or dental. Did that cover it?
Is there a second?
I'll second that, Shantay.
Shantay, I have a second. Now discussion. Ed?
I know you put in there that there's not an increase in dental and vision, but that we just accept the exhibit because we need to be able to show the rates there, that we accept those rates on the dental and vision with no increase. That would be all that we'd put in the motion.
Well, it doesn't show an increase, does it?
No,
Does it show an increase?
No, what I'm saying is we just accept the exhibit with no increase with the present rates that we have exhibited.
Oh, okay, sorry about that, okay, yeah.
When it goes
I'm
to the
good with
county,
that.
yeah, when it goes to the county commission, we have to show some type of rates, and so it would be with those rates with no increase.
Okay, yeah, I'm understanding, yeah, the rates as presented with the zero.
This is Lois. May I make a comment as well?
Lois, you're recognized.
Just one tiny correction on what Mary said. The stop loss at 18 months for plus 5% increase would take us to 2022.
Good catch. Other comments?
Mayor Kettering.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Kettering, this is Jeff Phillips.
Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering, if this passes, this motion passes, where does it go from here? Does it go to the budget, or does it go directly to the full commission?
No, sir, it goes to budget.
It goes to budget
Yes,
with
sir.
only this one recommendation,
That's correct.
and the budget committee said no. What happens there then?
Well, then the budget committee will decide what they want to do with it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Phillips?
Ed?
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
So I understand your question here. Would you like for the Insurance and Risk Management Office to have these other options available and be prepared to speak on it if the committee is not satisfied with the recommendation? Commissioner Phillips, you're mute.
Can you hear me now, Ed?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. As Chairman Pro Tem of the Commission, when it goes before the Budget Committee, I would want an alternative and what those savings may be. And that's what I'm saying is that I don't know when this will go before the budget or when it will go before the full commission, but whenever it does, we may be in an entirely different position than we are now. We may not be. And if things look better than we are now, I think this recommendation would fly through. But if it's not, I doubt seriously that there's going to be a majority of commissioners that are going to go for the 95, 93 option. So all I'm saying is that, you know, I'm an old guy, and there's not a lot that scares me anymore, but I've been afraid the last month or so of what our county and our state and even our country will look like 6 months from now. It's a scary, scary thing, and I just think as conservatively as we can approach this budget presentation, the commission is going to, the full commission is going to appreciate what different departments and different committees come to them with a budget that they don't have to really scrutinize. And this may be one of those things that the budget committee as well as the full commission will scrutinize a little bit depending on where we are. So I don't know if there's if there's an amendment that would be appropriate to add to that this is what the committee recommends, but there's also a plan B, and that plan B would be the 95, 90, 90. I would like, yes, Ed, I'd like for that, as a commissioner, I'd like for that to be explained. Once again, this may go, and this commissioner may also vote for it, but I'm just wanting something there in case they said no. It's just not. We have an alternative to go through.
Commissioner, I think it'd be appropriate that Jay and his team come in with Mr. Elam come in and present everything that this committee's looked at, and then the recommendation that comes from this committee, just say that this is the recommendation. This plan is recommendation from the insurance committee. However, here before you tonight is Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and then let the budget committee make the recommendation.
I don't disagree with that. As a member of this committee, I've learned a lot over the last year and a half, and I'll support the 95, 93, 93, but when it comes to the budget committee and even the full commission, as a commissioner, I might not. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not 100% sure where it goes from here, but wherever it goes from here, if it does not pass the budget committee or the full commission, we need at least someone to be able to explain what other options.
Yes, sir. Well, I think that's only fair that the full budget committee see the same thing that this committee has seen here today, and then you'll turn and say, Budget Chairman, Commissioner P would turn and say, well, what is the recommendation from the Insurance Committee? Well, it's the one that came into motion. They looked at Plan A, they looked at Plan B, Plan C, and they chose Plan B, whatever it may be. But I think, and then the same thing for the full commission. I think we need to go to the full commission.
I think I'm in agreement with that, but I would like for there to be an emphasis on this committee. They're a recommending body, just like the Planning Commission is a recommending body, and I'd like for that recommendation to be, I don't know, fully emphasized, if you know what I mean.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
No comments. Any other comments? Madam Secretary, could you one more time repeat repeat the motion?
I just have a quick question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Who's speaking?
So thank you. It's my understanding from the conversations that just happened, and Mr. Phillips, please correct me if I'm wrong, but we are going with the resolution that Mary Hickerson presented, which is to improve the stop loss to 18 months. Rate would be a 5% increase, which would take us to the year 2022. Go with the Cigna Value PDL, which would be an increase of 7%. On the dental and vision rates, they would pass as they are in the exhibits, which provides no increase in premiums. We would go with option 2 on the medical, which is the HRA employee only at 95%, the other levels at 30% on the county contribution, with the goal at next year to get to the 90% for the employee plus spouse, employee plus child, employee plus family. That would be the recommendation from this body, but also presenting to the budget committee the other options that are available for the medical rates that were presented by our brokers.
I believe that's
yeah,
right.
Pretty much. Mary, if I could just ask you, without that last thing about other presentations, that was your recommendation, right? Your motion?
Yes, sir, that is right.
Right, and then the other ones would just be added anyway, whether or not this motion passes. So yes, that's correct.
I guess my question is if I need to write that in or not.
I don't think so.
No.
I wouldn't think it would need to be wrote in, Stacy. It would just be other information that would be presented to the budget committee at the time.
It's
Fabulous.
correct.
Thank you.
Absolutely correct. Yes, thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Further discussion, Mr. Elam.
Stacy, you said something about 30%. I'm sorry. What was that?
Yeah, I think you meant 93%, not 30.
Yes.
Pardon? Yes, others at 93%, which would be the employee and spouse, employee plus child, employee plus family.
Yep.
All right.
Let me just ask one more. In that motion, would we look at taking it from 93 to 90 next year?
Yes.
Yes, sir, that was my intent, Mr. Phillips.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mary.
Okay, other questions?
This is Rhonda. I have a question. Jay, do you have a number that you can put on that change, a dollar value?
For which one? The this year's number for the one for this year, not next year?
Well, if going with option 2,
Yeah.
the way you presented it, versus option 2 with the change of the 93% versus the 90.
Right. So yeah, so the 93 will be still 5 million, 3.1 to the employer, 2.9 to the employee.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out is how much does that shift from them back to the county?
Yeah, so initially it was 4 million to the employer, 1 million to the employees. So it's $900,000.
Okay, but no, my question was, so in option 2 though, it was a more equal split. It was 2.5, I think, and 2.5. Was that not correct in your option 2?
It was 2.4 to the employer and 2.6 to the employee, yeah.
Okay, but then with the modification tweak that we just made, instead of going the 95, 90, 90, 90, we're doing the 95, 93. That's my question is, that amount is being shifted now back over to the employer. So what is that dollar value?
It's $700,000. Good question. Good clarification there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there other questions? Any other questions or comments?
I've got one comment.
Doug?
I'm just, like I said, I understand what we're talking about, but it just concerns me with the sales tax being such a large percentage of the general purpose school fund budget on the revenue and just the unknown. And like I said, I understand what Commissioner Phillips is saying. I agree with him. We've got to be very conservative with this as much as possible. That's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Any questions? Madam Secretary, if you would, please call the roll.
Rebel Acton? Rhonda Allen?
No.
Dr. Andrea Anthony?
No.
That's,
Doug Bowley?
that's like 7 echoes.
No.
Amber Brown?
No.
Shay Crowell?
Yes.
Holly Deering?
Yes.
Alan Farley?
Yeah.
Mary Hickerson?
Yes.
Lois Miller?
Yes.
Alan McAdoo?
No.
Jeff Phillips?
Yes.
Shantay Sherrill?
Yes.
Eric Chittavini?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we have 5 no and 8 yes.
Motion passes. Okay. Next item of business, any other business to come before us? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Elam?
Mayor Ketchum, if I could just take a second and thank everybody. I know this is new territory that we're in. I'd also like to thank Stacy DePriest and also Melissa Griffey in our office, because this is a first for them to be able to do it remotely and present the exhibits like they did. So again, it was a tough vote today, but I just want to thank everybody for your patience and your kindness towards our office.
Well, I thank you, Ed, and I too will thank everyone for participating. This was, you were part of history today, first virtual meeting, official meeting in Rutherford County government's history. So these are tough times. They're unprecedented times. There is nothing that has ever come before this commission. World War II, 9/11, nothing has ever come before this county of what is affecting us here today. We ask you to be safe and please wear your mask. Practice everything. These next 2 weeks are going to be tough, but we will take this on to the Budget Committee and make that recommendation. Hope everyone's safe, and that being said, we stand in adjournment. I was